December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
World War II, the deadliest war of all time. An estimated total of 70 to 85 million people dead. While this global conflict resulted in immense suffering and loss, there were also some positive outcomes that emerged from this dark period in history. One of the most significant benefits of World War II was the rapid technological advancements that emerged during and after the war. The need for new and innovative technology was vital for the war effort. The demand for better communication, transportation, and weaponry was so great that scientists and engineers were driven to create solutions that had never been seen before. One of the most infamous World War II inventions is the atomic bomb. In August 1945, the United States launched its first and so far only nuclear attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing an estimated 110,000 to 210,000 people. While the bomb stands out for its devastating impact, there were many other non-lethal innovations during the war that have drastically reshaped the world. For example, advances in aviation technology led to the development of modern jet engines. Frank Whittle, an English engineer with the Royal Air Force, filed the first patent for the jet engine in 1930. But the first country to fly a jet engine plane was Germany, which performed a flight test of its model on August 27, 1939, just a few days before the country invaded Poland. With the onset of the war, the British government developed planes based on Whittle's designs. The first Allied plane to use jet propulsion took flight on May 15, 1941. Jet planes could go faster than propeller planes, yet also required a lot more fuel and were more difficult to handle. Though they didn't have an impact on the war as they were still early in their development. Jet engines would later transform both military and civilian transportation. Another crucial invention was the radar. The first practical radar system was produced in 1935 by British physicist Sir Robert Watson Watt, and by 1939 England had built a network of radar stations along its south and east coasts. MIT's Radiation Laboratory, or RAD Lab, played a huge role in advancing radar technology in the 1940s. However, the lab's original goal was to use electromagnetic radiation as a weapon, not a form of detection. The first idea was if they could send a beam of electromagnetic energy at a plane, maybe they could kill the pilot by cooking them inside. That didn't work, but they were getting bounce back that could be received, and they had the idea that electromagnetic radiation could be used like the sound radiation in sonar. So the radar was born. Radar helped the Allied forces detect enemy ships and planes. Later, it proved to have many non-military uses, including guiding civilian crafts and detecting major weather events like hurricanes. While these were all important breakthroughs, the most important technological advancement was the invention of electronic computers. In the 1940s, the word computers referred to people who performed complex calculations by hand. During World War II, the United States began to develop new machines to do calculations for ballistics trajectories, and those who had been doing computations by hand took jobs programming these machines. In Britain, Alan Turing invented an electromechanical machine, called the bomb, that helped break the German Enigma cipher. While not technically what we'd now call a computer, the bomb was a forerunner to the Colossus machines, a series of British electronic computers. During the war, programmers like Dorothy Boo Boyzon and L.Z. Booker used the Colossus machines to break messages encrypted with the German Lorenz cipher. Technology wasn't the only part of our lives to get improved. The medical world came up with some groundbreaking stuff to save lives. One example could be the flu vaccines. The influenza pandemic of 1918 and 1919 had a major effect on World War I, and it motivated the US military to develop the first flu vaccine. Scientists began to isolate flu viruses in the 1930s, and in the 1940s, the US Army helped sponsor the development of a vaccine against them. The US approved the first flu vaccine for military use in 1945 and for civilian use in 1946. One of the lead researchers on the project was Jonas Salk, the US scientist who would later develop the polio vaccine. Another great example is penicillin. Before the widespread use of antibiotics like penicillin in the United States, even small cuts and scrapes could lead to deadly infections. The Scottish scientist Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in 1928, but it wasn't until World War II that the United States began to mass produce it as a medical treatment. Manufacturing penicillin for soldiers was a major priority for the US War Department, which touted the effort as a race against death in one poster. Military surgeons were amazed by how the drug reduced pain, increased the chance of survival, and made it easier for nurses and doctors to care for soldiers on the battlefield. It was like a miracle drug. The United States considered it so critical to the war effort that, to prepare for the D-Day landings, the country produced 2.3 million doses of penicillin for the Allied troops. After the war, civilians gained access to this life-saving drug as well. Another benefit that came with the war was changes to our social life. World War II brought significant progress in civil rights. During World War II, African American soldiers were given the opportunity to serve their country, even though they were still subjected to segregation and discrimination. However, their service helped to pave the way for the eventual desegregation of the US military, which was a major step forward for civil rights. Also, the war effort brought together people from different races and cultures, and this led to a greater appreciation for diversity. The Tuskegee Airmen, an all-black unit of pilots, for instance, not only served their country with distinction, but also challenged the racist beliefs that were prevalent at the time. While all of these helped humanity as a whole, the United States was the country that benefited the most from the war. During the 1930s, the United States was consumed by the harsh economic crisis of the Great Depression. The economy was plagued by bank failures and high unemployment rates. President Roosevelt's New Deal economic policies were helping the nation recover from the crisis. By the end of the 1930s, the Great Depression was weakening, but Americans were still hindered by the poverty that the Depression had created. In Europe, World War II started in 1939 with the German invasion of Poland. Germany invaded neighboring European countries and destroyed lives and property in its wake. Prior to the attack on Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt had promised to stay out of the war, but he wanted to support Britain in its struggle against German aggression. Great Britain's Prime Minister Winston Churchill requested Roosevelt's assistance after sustaining a heavy loss of ships, planes, and other military equipment at the hands of Germany. Churchill asked Roosevelt for supplies to help Great Britain defend itself in the war. Roosevelt wanted to keep his promise of neutrality, but he also wanted to be able to supply the British with supplies. His solution was the proposal of the Lend-Lease Act. The approval of the Lend-Lease Act shifted the US economy into a wartime economy. Many businesses moved from the production of consumer goods to the production of war supplies and military vehicles. American companies began producing guns, planes, tanks, and other military equipment at an unbelievable rate. As a result, there were more jobs available, and more Americans went back to work. Immediately following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, millions of men were called to duty. When these men joined the armed forces, they left behind millions of jobs. Instantly, the nation faced a labor shortage that was filled by workers who had previously been denied many employment opportunities. Women entered the workforce at an unprecedented rate. More than 6 million women were a part of the workforce during World War II. For many of them, this was the first time they held jobs outside of the home. They worked industry jobs that were traditionally held by men. The war also caused a labor shortage in the agricultural industry, as many American farmers and farm workers enlisted in the military. In an agreement with Mexico, President Roosevelt created the Bracero program. The program allowed Mexican laborers to immigrate to the United States temporarily to work on the nation's farms and ranches. Between 1942 and 1964, more than 4 million Braceros came to the United States under this program. As you can see, the war was quite beneficial for the United States. In conclusion, World War II was a devastating event that caused immense suffering and loss. However, it also brought about some unexpected benefits that have had a lasting impact on the world. We can only wish it didn't have to be this way, and make sure not to repeat the mistakes of our past. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.